don't know. My name is Malone. And I'm walking here. I'm walking here.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
Groovy.
So a couple of years ago, Joe Biden visited my college. I didn't actually get to go down and meet him because I was in class. But one of my friends said he went down for this. And he said he was hilarious. Like, he didn't give two fucks about what he said. He was just saying whatever he felt like. So he started hitting on this one girl who's like 20, who's in line. Like, it's her turn to stand and shake Joe's hand. He's just like complimenting her looks. And then he looks behind her to the boyfriend. He's like, "You two aren't a item, are you?" And then before the guy says anything, Joe just pulls her in real close and starts shaking her hand and says, "Doesn't matter either way."
Lap dance started playing. It was glorious.
Joe Biden, just an amazing...
The love of Leslie Knope's life.
Can we use that as a segue for the Star Wars episode?
That would never work.
No. We could try.
Speaking of throwing the Senate at him.
Hey, Star Wars!
Well, we finally get to do that thing Cody's been chomping at the bit at us to do for like 3 weeks now.
That's right.
I'm so happy.
I'm so happy to get it done with. I want this out of my life.
No, I've lost all my notes. Like the wind blows in.
My computer flies out the window. No!
It's like the opening to Goosebumps. Like, your prequel notes fly around and corrupt things.
Dun, 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 dun.
No, my game!
My games! And I just start unraveling like Oogie Boogie at the end of the Nightmare Before Christmas. Just, no, my
frogs.
There's frogs jumping out. Oh, God, that's what Cody was made of the entire time.
Oh, God, we have to kill it all with fire. Anyways, welcome to the show, everyone. If you haven't gathered by now, we are talking about Star Wars tonight.
Cody,
specifically.
Cody,
yes.
You can't say that every time. We've had no decent segue.
I mean, I know I can't use that for when we're not talking about Star Wars, but when we're actually talking about Star Wars, I think it's perfectly acceptable to say, welcome to the show. If you haven't gathered, we're talking about Star Wars.
Cody, what the fuck did you even just say?
Okay, I am on Cody's side on this one, weirdly, because people know what episode they're getting into.
Well, I know it has the title on it, but still, segues. You have to respect the segue.
We totally segued.
When have we ever respected the segues on this show? Have you heard our segues?
Fuck the segue. There, I said it.
That man died, Cody.
R.I.P. Dean Common.
Anyways, welcome to the show, everyone. If you haven't gathered by this part of the intro, we're still talking about Star Wars. Specifically, Star Wars Episodes 1, Episodes 2, and Episode 3. Even more specifically, we're just looking at the positive aspects of the prequels. Because, let's be honest, people spend a lot of time shitting on those movies. So we're going to be a guiding source of light in this universe. We're gonna throw some positive vibes out. And, yeah, hold on a second. That's right. We're doing this in challenge mode.
Why did you pop open a beer in the middle of your intro?
Because I forced myself to say we're going to talk about nice things in Star Wars Episode 3.
Oh, that's true. Wait, Episode 3 is the best one?
We'll get to that.
It's the one with Grievous.
We'll get to that. Anyways, if you also haven't gathered by now, I'm still your host, and I'm Cody. Welcome. I've done many of these podcasts before. If you've listened to them, it's still me.
I have not been replaced by a cyborg of some kind.
It has not happened yet. Anyways, don't try, James. I have the high ground. James Lewis, everyone.
You shouldn't have tried it. You should have.
I hate you.
Next up, banished because he was clumsy, it's MB.
At last we will reveal ourselves to Box Office Pulp. At last we will have revenge.
You so will have revenge. And lastly, his cells have the lowest concentration of midi-chlorians that I've ever seen in a life form. It's Mike Napier.
I voted Sebulba.
Right. Anyway.
Why did that throw you for a loop?
I didn't have anything clever to say to that, so fuck it. Through the miracle of editing, we're just going to plow ahead. Or not. Who knows?
A miracle of editing.
Right. So everyone trashes the prequels, myself included. I'm pretty sure at some point in your lives you probably said something negative about them. Maybe.
Oh, yeah. Plenty.
Just once or twice, maybe, possibly. A thing or two.
Or 300 times, or just last week.
Mailed some hate mail to
Doesn't
George
matter.
Lucas crying on the letters. Just why, George, why?
The fact of the matter is, we're deciding to forego any of that because it's old hat.
It's been
At this-
done.
Yeah, it's been done over and over again. Everyone has gone over it in microscopic detail. And honestly, like, people just don't give any due attention to the stuff that actually was done well in those movies, so.
Yeah, I feel
Very true.
that these Star Wars prequels were sadly a defining moment in modern nerd culture. That was the moment where nerd culture went from being about celebrating the things that brought us together and that we were passionate about to being the butthurt generation.
The day fandom went to the dark side.
Yeah, the prequels have been a scar that's run down the history of this culture, like, pretty much until the release of The Force Awakens just last week. And I feel like it's time to put this to bed.
That's right.
Like, there's a lot of build up to this, because I was the one who kind of came up with the idea of doing a prequel episode this way. And there was various reasons that sort of led me to this direction. Number one was when I rewatched the prequels, like, this is back in 2008, for the first time in years, and I was struck by, as I was going like, I guess I'll do it just to remind myself of what they're like. You know, at that point I had seen Phantom Menace a lot when I was a kid, but not for like 10 years, and I'd seen Attack of the Clones once. I've still only seen Attack of the Clones 3 times, and God willing, there won't be a 4th. And I was just struck by going, all right, that wasn't that bad. That was not the worst thing that's ever happened to me, was sitting down and watching 3 Star Wars movies. And just, and this was back in 2008. Now it's the year 2015. And, just recently, this is, after we decided to do this episode, there was an article on the Nerdist, a very good website. I'm not saying it's, stupid or anything, but this particular writer decided to post a video from 1999 that someone, like a personal video that someone had done, or a news thing, I don't remember, outside of a theater that was playing Phantom Menace, asking fans who were coming out what they thought. And people were coming out really excited. They had seen Star Wars and saying they liked it and all this stuff. And this writer just lampooned these guys of this old-ass video from the year 1999.
I believe at one point it was said, somebody needs to drag these people out into the street and shoot them.
Pretty much, like, I want to know what they feel like now. I'd love to ask them how they feel about this now. And there was one guy in the video who just showed up really mad, like, I want George Lucas to give me my money back. And
He wanted a personal written apology to be publicly read aloud.
Yes, and the guy writing the article.
Still does.
The guy writing the article was like, this guy has it right. Ironically, in the video, that guy's the one who's being made fun of for being an ungrateful nerd. and all I could think while reading this, like, that movie came out in 99. Are you fucking still on this shit? Are we still not past this?
And here's the thing, too. This applies to basically every bad movie that has ever been made from... God, I don't even know what you would consider a cutoff date, but think about Batman and Robin. Now, the prequels, I would say, are not as bad as Batman and Robin. Well, Attack of the Clones.
Yeah.
Attack of the Clones is horrific compared to Batman and Robin, but Batman and Robin is still of a quality way lesser because they are not taking anything seriously at all. Batman and Robin, it's gotten way too old to make fun of that movie and talk about that movie like it's the worst thing of our generation that has ever happened, because it's not. It came out in 97. These came out in 99 and respectively 2002 and 2005. Even 2005 is like, okay, let's move on.
There's been more Star Wars since then.
And I say that as someone who doesn't even particularly like any of these films. I still do not get what the extreme hatred is for them.
But they're not even, like, hating films anymore. It's a thing you do as a fan to say the prequels suck. Like,
It's part of the culture.
Yeah, it's like, in 30 years, are anybody even going to be remembering why they say the prequels suck? Because it's like, I just saw, like, I think it was a cosplayer or something, was talking about Star Wars and saying that she, like, saw the prequels, and everyone went off on her, and she had to go, I was a child. Of fucking course I saw the Star Wars prequels. I was 9.
Also,
That's no
every single
excuse.
one of those people saw them.
Yeah, it's like, no, you do not get your geek cred revoked because you saw some movies once.
Once again, I'm just going to go back on that and say, they all saw that. It's like, Star Wars, the prequels were all seen. It's not like one of these cases where nobody went to see it.
People
And-
saw those again and again and again, despite hating them.
Yes.
And it's so strange how you don't see this level of hatred attached to other disappointing follow-ups. Like, nobody is still mad about The Matrix Revolutions.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know,
nobody
there's a lot
is
of people
really
out there
pissed
really
off.
pissed about Inspector Gadget 2. Like, there's just
Well, I know
a
you're
writhing community out there of people very upset that Matthew Broderick was not brought back.
Cody has protested.
Like, nobody is just still writing angry blog posts dissecting why Dead Man's Chest was not a proper follow-up to Curse of the Black Pearl.
I'm going to check the internet for that quick because I have a feeling you're incorrect.
Actually,
If you go to IMDb, you're cheating, Cody.
weirdly
Okay.
enough, the one I disagree with is the Matrix one, because I feel like it's not Revolutions, it's Reloaded and Revolutions that gets bunched together. Like, people talk about just the fact that, the sequels are just horrible.
Well, you can't bring up The Matrix without someone saying, oh, the sequels are so bad. Motherfucker, I wasn't talking about the sequels.
Yeah.
Still, but I feel like there's not I guess the thing is, there's not really a Matrix culture in fandom, whereas Star Wars is like a religion.
Star Wars is, we should point out the fact that Star Wars is insanely nostalgic, and it's a cultural touchstone and is beloved by millions of people, whereas Matrix was a really good movie.
Well, here's a better comparison. Star Trek, probably the most rabid, foaming at the mouth fandom that has ever existed in the history of nerd culture. You don't see people getting really mad over The Undiscovered Country.
They do kind of let it go after a while.
I don't know. That's because they have another one come along after a couple of years and they get mad about that one for a while.
Oh, yeah. But once again, it's like, I'm sure there's plenty of Star Wars fans who are mad about the current movie who are still not letting go of the prequels either.
Yeah, Star Trek is one of those things where they're so used to so many bad. They have more bad movies than most franchises have movies.
Actually, that's an interesting thing. Everyone's saying Star Wars, killed my childhood. Let's not even go into the stupidity of that statement.
Oh yeah, that is without a doubt one of the most overused, dumb arguments that has ever been used by the internet.
Unless you're Jake Lloyd, then you can get away with saying.
Yeah, Jake Lloyd also has schizophrenia and is horribly messed up. And
That's what I was saying to MB the other day. Like, the only two people who can safely say that Star Wars ruined their lives are Jake Lloyd and Hayden Christensen.
That's it.
They are the two victims. You did fine. You just had to watch some movies you didn't like.
I'm just imagining Star Wars has them in a corner, just beating them up and taking their wallets, and they're crying, and they wake up in a cold sweat, and it's years after this happened, but they still remember what Star Wars did.
Wizard. It's like, I'm just, and part of my build up for this was like, I listened to a podcast with what was his name, Kyle Newman, the director of Fanboys.
Yes.
Who kind of went on like, yeah, are the prequels good? No, but they're still movies, and there are things to talk about in regards to the movies. Like, was Jar Jar really Satan to everybody? What are you even talking about anymore when you're like, Jar Jar Binks was so annoying? Like, okay, let it go. Like, it's, you know who really liked Jar Jar Binks? 10-year-olds. That's okay.
It's like still being mad about the Ewoks.
Debatable.
yeah,
I was a kid when Episode 1 came out, and for Christmas someone got me a Jar Jar Binks shirt, and I had to be nice because it's like, oh, a relative got me something they thought I would enjoy. That was nice of them, but in my head I was like, I will never wear this.
I didn't like Jar Jar when I was a kid, but I also didn't dislike him. He was just there as a character.
I I actually had the same reaction as Mike. It's like, Jar Jar just was kind of white noise for me whenever I watched Phantom Menace. Like, my whole thing with Phantom Menace was I was so transfixed on anything, literally anything, in relation to or featuring Darth Maul.
Hold up.
Because
don't mention any positives yet. That'll play into our game.
Oh, God. I forgot there's a game.
There's a game. It's going to be the bulk of the episode, actually, so save all of your positive comments for the game.
Why?
I hate this podcast.
I like how that's the running tagline for this show. Every episode, someone says, I hate this podcast.
Is it too late to do a special edition of the last episode of me saying that after I found out we weren't doing the prequels?
You can yell no, and we'll add in audible blinks.
No. Anyways, do you guys want to talk a little bit more about why we shouldn't hate the prequels, or should we move into a game where we focus on the positives of the prequels?
Well, I just want to say that...
Answer me these riddles 3, Batman.
Shut up, Cody. I just want to... Okay, I want to make it perfectly clear from the start that when we're going into this, when we're talking positively about this, we're not saying that you should like the prequels, that you should love them, that you should consider them great movies. We're not saying you are wrong for disliking them. That's
this isn't
fine.
one of those things where like, well, these are unappreciated gems that later generations will take into consideration.
Yeah, we're not like, we're so smart. You guys are stupid. It's not one of those.
Yeah, it's like...
I think it's probably the other way around. We are not clever people.
Well, no.
Oh, God, no.
We're not saying any of that, but at the same time, all we're doing is just looking at these movies from an actual critical standpoint, and I feel like that is important to say because people don't look at these critically because nobody has really rewatched them and looked at them analytically. Nobody's really looked at the things that are actually good at them or good about them. People have only harped on the same elements over and over and over again. Jar Jar, the fact that Darth Maul gets killed, the fact that the Gungans are so annoying and blah, 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 blah.
Midi-chlorians.
Midi-chlorians and freaking Attack of the Clones warned it.
Unlimited power.
Unlimited power.
Which is awesome. I don't care what you say. I love how for no goddamn reason Darth Sidious says power! Unlimited power for no reason.
The moment where he becomes your emperor.
Yeah.
As his face is slowly turning into a wrinkly ass.
He looks like such a... That's amazing.
Jake Lloyd, Hayden Christensen, their performances, Anakin being a whiny, mopey bitch, let's just say it. But, yeah, those are things that everyone has focused on. We've all said it over and over and over again. Here are the things that we aren't saying a lot. And this is what we're going to focus on because this stuff needs to be talked about if we're going to talk about something that you people keep bringing up. And by you people, I mean the internet generation.
I was going to say, I feel like a lot of finger pointing's going on there, man. I feel uncomfortable.
Well, as the movie criticism world's very own Obi-Wan Kenobi, film crit Hulk, once said, you should never hate a movie no matter how bad it is, because all movies are a learning experience.
Yeah.
Except for The Dark Knight Rises.
Hey, I learned a lot about class warfare and voices.
Of course.
Hey, I learned if you took that mask off, it would be very painful for you.
You're a big guy.
I learned how a soul can die.
And on that cheery note, shall we move into the game?
Okay, let's get this over with.
Just to make Cody happy.
Cody, what is the game?
I don't want to do this anymore.
Too late. You're locked in.
I'm gonna
We're
fight.
doing it live.
I'm gonna fight you this entire way. I hope you know that.
That's fine. You'll be the loser in the game.
You'll be dead.
You'll be dead. I don't think he likes it.
I can't wait to win the Star Wars prequel trilogy episode of Box Office Pulp.
Yes, but to be
Get
crowned
prizes.
victor, you will have to follow these rules.
Oh God.
We're playing in 3 rounds. Each round is dedicated to a movie. Makes sense so far, I hope, or God, there's something wrong with you. Anyways, in each round, it'll be split into 2 parts. Now stay with me. I know we're getting confusing because we had 3 rounds. Now each round has 2 parts. And
Just tell us the rules.
All right, so we're going to start off with some trivia. Each person gets a trivia question. If you can't answer it, someone else can steal it from you and get that point. So we're going to ask 3 questions. Once that's done, we move on to the bread and butter of the round. And we're going to go 10 or 15 minutes per movie. How many positive things do you have to say? 15 minutes it is. For 15 minutes, each time you say a positive thing about the particular movie we're talking about, you get 1 galactic flexo credit. Every time you say anything negative about the films, or about Star Wars, or George Lucas, or any of the people participating in the films, you lose 1 galactic flexo credit.
Wait, can I have negative flexo credits?
You can. That's the thing that can happen.
Wait. Are you going to actually be tallying up all of this insane,
yes.
How are you going to keep up with this?
And I have my own points I would like to make. I'm playing the game too.
This is like win Ben Stein's
money. You're competing with us for Flexos?
It's like win Ben Stein's money, but win Flexo's galactic credits.
Yeah, give James some credit. Some Flexo credit.
Wait, so you have all the Flexo galactic points right now?
Well, they're named after me, so yes, they are all mine.
Okay, so how many are there?
You know about the Money Mountain idea?
Oh, God. Oh, Jesus.
It's like that, but bigger.
Cody, I propose something. Yes. I don't think any of us trust Cody with his Flexo Galactic credits or whatever the fuck they're called.
Not at all.
We're not using Mike Bucks. This conversation's over.
No. I'll be the bank. You lend them to me, and I'll dole them out.
I don't know if I can trust you with those. What if we bring in Matt to act as an independent treasury?
You let me look at your sordid affairs.
You give me those galactic credits, boy. I've got
so further information
paper
on
in
listen
front
to
of me.
Bible Belt.
Cross promotion.
Call back
to the last episode.
Ew.
It's all connected tissue.
That's right. We didn't have a game in that one, so it's not as fun. But whatever. Okay, so is everyone ready? Does everyone think they understand the rules?
I don't get this at all. I'm sorry.
Good! So, let's start things off with Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. Round 1 trivia. James, you'll get the first question. Now, everyone be aware, if James admits he does not know or he says the wrong answer, MB or Mike can steal the question for a point. James, you have first crack. The question is, what attribute of Liam Neeson cost the set crew $150,000?
Hair extensions.
No. MB, Mike.
How tall he was.
Mike has it correct.
What?
1 point for Mike.
Yeah, fun fact. Even though Phantom Menace had sets, they still, for whatever reason, built them to actor height, and the rest was green screen. And because Liam Neeson was so tall, when they cast him, they had to make the set slightly taller, which cost untold amount of money. Because for some reason, some of it still had to be CGI.
That was an actual thing that happened on the sets. They got pissed off that Liam Neeson was tall, and they didn't consider that during their plan of building sets.
Wow.
Question 2. MB, this one's for you. What sound effect can be heard after the film's closing credits?
Willem scream?
No, incorrect. James, Mike.
Darth Vader's breathing.
Correct again. Damn it, Mike's actually going to win all my questions.
I like how already I have to stop this game right now.
The game is cancelled.
The whole point of this was to fuck Mike over, per usual.
I didn't. Well, you're assuming you're going to be a negative Nancy. That's all on you. Anyways.
Fuck you, Cody.
Mike, whose line it is... let me say that again. Whose line is it anyways, star? Voice the alien Bede
I know this one. I know this one.
Red obvious announcer.
Greg Proops.
Greg Proops. Flawless victory on Mike's half. Let's see if we continue that into the bulk of the round. So, gentlemen, focus your comments exclusively on things pertaining to the Phantom Menace. We've got 15 minutes, so as many positive things as you can spew out in that amount of time will net you points. I am the judge, jury, and executioner here, so if I think some of the points are related, I won't necessarily give you credits. If you say stupid things like, I like the way they made stars like stars, nothing.
Wow.
Well, there goes my entire argument.
Okay,
So,
Since Mike got all the points, does he start, or does that give
It's
me
a free-for-all. Don't interrupt someone when they're talking, so someone can filibuster as long as they're saying pertinent information. So,
What
are we
kind of
ready?
podcast do you think this is?
I don't even know if this is a podcast anymore.
Box Office Pulp, everybody! Anyways, are we all
Okay.
set? I've got my finger on the timer. Let me know when I can push the button.
Okay, push the button. I'm going to my first one.
Go! 14:58, 57, 50... Go.
Shut up! Shut up! We have a time limit now. You cannot do this.
He's so excited.
You're right.
Liam Neeson's chemistry with Ewan McGregor is actually really good because
It
you
is.
actually
Oh, yeah.
believe that their mentor and apprentice, because you can see like shades of what Obi-Wan will become in Qui-Gon, but it avoids acting as a carbon copy of Alec Guinness and like Liam Neeson's portrayal, because it's a very distinct character in Qui-Gon Jinn, but it's still just it gives you enough of an illusion of where that character came from, and gives you sort of a repertoire that you can kind of go through the movie following and really kind of being invested in really quickly, because both the actors are really good in the roles and they're really excellently cast. So for those two characters, it was kind of vital from the beginning that they be this amazing duo. And Neeson and McGregor really nail it. I mean, particularly McGregor, who just nails the franchise in general, as we'll get into, but
Yeah, he's often overlooked, but McGregor is so damn good. Like,
This
that's...
was a star-making performance from
Yeah.
him.
Like,
oh yeah.
I think James likened it the other day to Carl Urban as Bones in Star Trek, where it's like, it's the original performance, but it's not an imitation of the original performance.
Well, it's even, I think it goes even deeper than that, because McGregor's version of Obi-Wan in Star Wars Episode 1 is so unlike Alec Guinness, because he has so much time to build towards that version of the performance, and I think he knows that he just has these little shades of like differences, and like questioning his master's decisions, and, you know, going off the beaten path in terms of just questioning the Jedi Council. He's really reluctant to go against the Jedi Council, even though what he's clearly being taught is to question everything. And I think there's like a lot of layers to that character, even established in Episode 1, that McGregor plays with, and is just really, I mean, he's just, I don't know how many ways to say a man is really good in a performance, but McGregor is the saving grace, if you will, of the entire franchise.
Oh, yeah,
Yes.
definitely. He's kind of the de facto main character, because, you know, no one ever's ever really touched Anakin. Even
Yeah,
going back
negative
to when he was a
point.
kid. God damn it. I can have positive things to say about Anakin.
You have the most
You
points.
can,
You're
but you
fine.
didn't.
God damn it. Well,
That's true. I also gave you a point for bringing up Ian McGregor, even though MB did that. So really, you're at a net gain of 0, so you're fine.
I'm just going to ignore this point system.
That's for the best.
And Neeson really catapults and saves some scenes that he's in. Because he did the best with some of that Lucas dialogue that...
Negative point.
I don't care, Cody. He did best with some of that. Well, I'm using that to say positive things, you jackass. Because
You
there's
can
some...
cuss me out all you want. I won't subtract points for that, but you have to be nice to the films.
Because, I mean, there are some pretty ridiculous scenes that Neeson has to sell.
I mean, he has to stand in front of the Gungan council and appeal to the release of Jar Jar Binks, and say that all with a pretty straight face. And Neeson,
Where does a guy go? "Brrrr."
yeah, I mean,
point.
what's the name of the dude who plays the
Brian Blessed.
Yeah, Brian Blessed. He plays
Boss Nass.
as Boss Nass, and Neeson plays it so straight and so endearing that you forget what kind of movie he's in for a minute, and you really like see this sort of wonder in his performance, and he wants to believe so badly that he is on a path that is going to lead him to the chosen one in a weird way. Like it almost feels like it's a foregone conclusion. Like he's going throughout the film before he even meets Anakin, like he knows what he's doing is right by going against the Jedi Council's decisions, by going just on his own instincts and trying to feel out what he's trying to do as a mentor and a leader, and as someone who's trying to protect a princess. Like Neeson has so much going on in this movie, and he manages to bring a fully rounded character into a movie where the crux of it is that he dies at the end.
Spoilers.
And it's pretty much Qui-Gon's movie. I mean, he's the one character you follow around. There's not a lot of cutting to other things that often, other than, seeing stuff with the Senate every once in a while. But
I was surprised rewatching the movie how much time actually all the characters spend separated. Like, they go to Tatooine and Obi-Wan Kenobi is, like, off fixing the ship or something, and Liam Neeson's the one actually taking them into town, talking to Watto, finding Anakin. There's a lot of times where you're following him and either characters haven't been introduced yet, or they don't have much to do, or they're off screen. So yeah, it really becomes his movie.
And I think that helps ground it a lot, because if you were constantly cutting to, if Padme was separating, you were constantly cutting to her story, and then back to Qui-Gon, the fact that it stays focused on Qui-Gon helps bring everything in, like he's gravity, bring every other character together.
Well, in Phantom Menace specifically, there are levels of focus that are really not a hindrance to the movie whatsoever, because you don't spend a lot of Padme because they're trying to build up the reveal that she's actually the Queen of Naboo, and you don't spend a lot of time with Anakin because, he's really kind of introduced midway through the movie and kind of they're telling a story, but they're telling a story through the point of view of Obi-Wan. Well, not Obi-Wan, but Qui-Gon and Padme and the other characters, and even his mother to some extent. Like, there are a lot of factors surrounding Anakin, but Anakin himself is sort of almost like a secondary element of that storyline.
And Qui-Gon helps sell Anakin's part in a way, Lloyd couldn't, where it really, he kind of props up the character that would fall flat otherwise.
I just know. I don't know what he wanted to say negative points.
I was just marking it down silently. We gotta keep moving here. We've only got 15 minutes.
I know you were, buddy.
Mike, you're now at net zero. You have no points.
Oh my God, I'm crushed. Because otherwise, if Qui-Gon wasn't there, Neeson's performance wasn't there, could you imagine buying that Anakin was going to save the universe based off how he's written in that performance?
It's really hard to buy, just by itself, the idea that Anakin is going to be of any importance whatsoever, but Qui-Gon manages to, just through sheer belief that the fact that this kid is the chosen one, he manages to bring a level of wonder that I would say is very comparable to Alec Guinness's Obi-Wan Kenobi in the first A New Hope. Like, the thing that I kind of lament about the trilogy, and I know I'm getting a negative point for this, I don't care.
Marking it down now.
The thing that I always kind of lamented about them and that I felt was a wasted opportunity was that Qui-Gon was not Obi-Wan Kenobi and Obi-Wan Kenobi was not Anakin, because I feel like if those two had been the crux of the entire trilogy, nobody would complain about the prequels whatsoever, because they're that well developed in the Phantom Menace. And the performances are there.
Yeah.
The performances are really there. I mean, it almost plays like they're those characters. It just plays out a very different way.
All right. Quick interruption. We have about 6.5 minutes left. I'm going to switch up topics here because there's been a lot of love on Liam Neeson and Ian McGregor. I want to bring up some of these set pieces. Pod racing. Shit. I love pod racing as a kid, and I love the pod racing video game so goddamn much. Like, as a kid, I just wanted to play the pod racing game all day long. There are some great set pieces in episode 1 that really stand out. Even if you don't care for the entire movie, there are chunks of it that you can't deny are a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, the pod racing scene is actually really well done because, I mean, there's not a lot of dialogue. It just focuses purely on action. It focuses purely on the fact that it's just supposed to be adrenaline-fueled, just, I wouldn't even say hijinks. It was just more of like, it's visual spectacle.
Yeah, it's something you had never really seen before at that point. I mean,
Especially in a Star
it was
Wars
the precursor to the Quidditch scenes in Harry Potter. I've never seen a fantasy sport played out in its entirety like that.
And all the action sequences are really, really pretty amazing. It's a very fun movie.
And I would say that because the pod racing scene specifically, because it has so many quick cuts to actual live action footage of Jake Lloyd in the actual pod racing
Cockpit.
Yeah, the cockpit. You actually see just quick cuts of him amidst the CGI. That the CGI actually works a lot better in that scene than a lot of other scenes because it is a mostly CGI sequence. And
Although you would be surprised, there's actually a lot of good miniature work in like the canyons they're racing through. They went to the trouble of building those sets up and filming in there, and then compositing the Anakin pod racer inside of them.
And makes a big difference.
That's why it's still some of the best CGI in the entire franchise, including Revenge of the Sith.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, the movie itself has some of the best CGI of the entire trilogy because it's just, it doesn't feel like it's going out of its way to present itself in any sort of way. It's sort of subdued in a weird way.
Which is strange because Phantom Menace is the movie that seems to get the brunt of the complaints about the prequel trilogies, about everything being fake and George Lucas just wanting everything to be CGI, when The Phantom Menace was the last movie in that trilogy to have sets and makeup.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And ironically, I don't know if anybody else agrees with me, and that's fine, which is I think Phantom Menace is maybe it's not the best of the prequels. It's definitely second best, and by a wide margin considering the one that's directly behind it.
Oh, yeah.
I would probably say it's my favorite of the trilogy.
Yeah, it feels most like Star Wars to me.
One thing you pay attention to that really sells the idea of a link between the old films and the prequel trilogy is that Obi-Wan's lines are written between this mix of humor and seriousness that the old films are known for. He's the only character in that entire film that's kind of written that way, I feel like.
The dialogue in Phantom Menace feels like Star Wars dialogue. Like there's some of the far too austere, fake Shakespearean stuff. Yes, Cody, mark me down for a negative. In the other two prequels. But Phantom Menace is the one that gets the right mixture, that Star Wars dialogue, that everyday kind of speak with this other stuff coming from characters like Qui-Gon Jinn or Yoda or Mace Windu. It's the perfect balance where characters feel real and not like they're just spouting things.
Yeah, as I was going to say earlier, as far as Mike's assessment of, at the end of the day, The Phantom Menace being a fun movie, I just want to go on a slight tangent and say that in preparing to record this episode, everyone else just watched the prequels. I was unable to because for whatever Disney voodoo, you cannot find the prequels for rent anywhere digitally. So I had to improvise and watch fan edits on YouTube. And I watched them from a particular YouTube channel, and these are called the anti-cheese cuts. The anti-cheese cut of The Phantom Menace is really, really surreal because it's only an hour and a half long. Like, they cut out like most of the political stuff, the entire stuff with the Gungan city underwater. Like, Jar Jar barely speaks, and whenever he does, it's subtitled, and he just speaks normal English. And it's a day and night change. Like, with that, just that, with all of these really subtle tweaks, The Phantom Menace not only has a Star Wars pacing and a Star Wars feel, but is actually kind of a good movie. Like, there is a good movie hidden in The Phantom Menace. You just have to cut around it.
Yeah, it doesn't take much. Even Jar Jar, like, when I first rewatched them a couple years ago, the thing that struck me most was like, well, I didn't mind Jar Jar that much. Because he's really annoying up front when he's introduced, but once Anakin's introduced, he's kind of just fine until the third act where he has his physical comedy moments that should have been cut out.
Well, that's what I love about the anti-cheese cut, is it cuts away all of the little cutaways to Jar Jar's physical comedy, where with Jar Jar just being silent, he's actually really endearing. Like, he's the Chewbacca of the film.
Well, it's like,
shut up, Cody's watch.
Yeah. Well, it's like, just for one more Jar Jar note, it's like and this is kind of a segue, like, his few moments in episode 2, he still talks like Jar Jar, but he's not written as overbearing comedy Jar Jar. He has a little bit of comedy that just kind of makes him, gives him personality, but it's not the whoa stuff he was doing the beginning of Phantom Menace. He's falling over himself during the battle. Jar Jar can be very easily perfectly fine.
Time.
Yeah, we know, Cody. We know.
Okay, so
Are we really done with Phantom Menace, though? Because I still had at least one big thing to mention.
Go
you
on.
can say it, but you get no points.
Okay, well, I'm fine with that. Okay,
Yeah, we're all fine with that, Cody.
The one thing I want to bring up, and I hinted at this pretty heavily towards the beginning, is that Darth Maul is one of the highlights of, I wouldn't say the entire series because there are so many great characters in the original trilogy, but he is, without a doubt, one of the top highlights of the entire prequel trilogy, and here's my theory why. It's because he's the anti-Boba Fett. He is a character that does a lot in the little time he's given, and when he dies, you actually want to see how much he could have gone further, because he represents how a character like Boba Fett could have become so popular among people, delivering on the promise of what he was supposed to do, because, he's a Sith Lord. He comes up with a successful lightsaber battle by the end. He has a general competence in his hunt for Amidala and the Jedis, and he actually murders one of the major characters. And even with no lines whatsoever, he has an amazing design. He has this really imposing, intimidating presence. And not only that, but he feels consistent with the idea of the character of the Sith Lord, the way that Darth Vader was later on, and the way that these other Sith Lords have been referenced throughout the canon. Darth Maul fits in right alongside them, and you believe that he's actually Sidious's first apprentice.
Yeah, there's the way the Sith are played in that movie are so mysterious and spooky, and Maul, by his nature, is mysterious and spooky, so that's just, that's highlighted, that's magnified by about 100. And there's the viciousness to him. Just his glee when fighting. He's the Darth Vader who you can see his facial expressions and is enjoying, killing people.
And that's the magic of Ray Park, who just, people like to shit on Ray Park for whatever reason. Like, oh, he's just a stunt man. He had no business actually being in movies. Like, nobody plays viciousness like Ray Park. Those fucking facial expressions.
Yeah, there's character even in his fight style. And I had forgotten Maul has a theme. And I don't mean Duel of the Fates. I mean, he has his own theme. It just only appears very briefly twice in the film, but he has his own theme. It's creepy and weird and fantastic.
And visually, he is one of the most unique-looking movie characters I think I've ever seen, because essentially he looks like someone who has been made up with tattoos, but in this space operatic, almost demonic nature. And with the horns, it only makes that even more... it adds to it in a way that I can't really define. Like, the red and the black, the way the teeth look, the way the eyes look, everything is just so unique and of a completely different tone from the rest of the characters of the Star Wars pantheon, but still in keeping with what that universe needs and what that universe would produce.
Round 2!
And can I just make one more comment about Phantom Menace?
No points.
I don't care. So, I think everyone agrees that Anakin should have been older.
Oh, yeah.
But I disagree with people who say he should have been, more Luke's age or late teens or early 20s or something, because I actually really enjoy the idea that it's not like, it's a kid still. So I think he should have been aged up to 13 or 14. Closer to Padme's age, for God's sake.
Yeah, that...
You get rid of the child actor thing. And one of the biggest problems with Anakin is he's written as a realistic child. And God, no one wants to see that in a movie.
The entire basis of Anakin being in the movie is that he's built up as the once and future Darth Vader. And the thing is that if you look at him from a character perspective just on his own, is that if you take that out of the equation, he works way better, because you can't place that kind of expectation on a character like that. Even if you did age him up, you would still have to kind of take it out of your mind that he eventually becomes Vader, because that's the point of Anakin Skywalker's character, I think, is that it's so unbelievable that he's going to become Darth Vader, because that's something nobody could have predicted in the world. Obi-Wan shouldn't have been able to tell that he was going to the dark side.
I've seen that cape.
Seen those dead Tusken Raiders. But I do disagree with people who think he shouldn't have been a child at all. An older child, the early teens or whatever. But I like the idea that it's kind of, it's a different beast than just Luke being, a teenage farm boy. It's something younger and more innocent. And starting Anakin there, I think, was interesting. But God, he just was too young. He was just.
Yeah, he was way younger than people who complain about Robin in the Batman movies.
He was supposed to be what, 8?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was not. He
was a baby.
Yeah.
And it kind of, they shoot themselves in the foot with whatever characterization they give that character. No matter what, it's going to be erased by the next movie because he's not going to be a kid anymore.
Yeah, you can't have follow through. When you get to Attack of the Clones, there's none of that Anakin in that Anakin because why would there be? 10 years have passed and he was a child.
I will say I disagree with Mike on some level in the idea that he could have been, it would have been more interesting for him to be younger, because my thing with him is that if he started out at Luke's age, what would have been cool is that you see the progression of him into a full Jedi Master way quicker than you would have seen Luke. And you would have seen him as a more experienced Jedi Master, and the more progressive idea of it is that eventually you see him at Obi-Wan age, almost, or like Obi-Wan in the prequel trilogy. And
that's kind of something they shoot themselves in the foot with the whole age thing.
Yeah, that's what, age him up to age 14, and then, and then in Attack of the Clones, he's 24, 25, then Revenge of the Sith, he's in his 30s. You kind of start to get into that. Then by the time, the original trilogy rolls around, he's actually the appropriate age than when you see him in the original trilogy.
Yeah.
It's you get to play around with age more that way in Revenge of the Sith, he's what, 25?
Yeah.
Those were a rough 18 years for Anakin Skywalker, because, man, you see him without that helmet. Oof.
He ate a lot of cheeseburgers after he was burned, too. Jesus.
Also for just for Obi-Wan, man, baking out in that sun those 18 years.
Obi-Wan, Yoda. This blew me away when I was watching Revenge of the Sith. Yes, Cody, we'll get back to the game in a second. Fucking Uncle Owen and Aunt Peru. They were younger than Anakin.
I forgot about that.
Yes.
They're in their 40s or 50s in the original trilogy. They're 20.
It bears mentioning. Who plays Uncle Owen? Who plays Uncle Owen? Who, a current star now, plays Uncle Owen?
Anybody?
No, I didn't notice.
You didn't know?
It's Joel Edgerton, right? Joel?
Yes.
Yes.
Edgerton.
Joel Edgerton, who is currently, his career is currently starting off, essentially. And he was Uncle Owen in those movies, so that is even more surreal. But
Strange.
Anyway, that is Attack of the Clones territory, so we should probably move on.
Yeah, Cody.
Hey, man. You're the one who said you want positive things. I make a game to foster a positive environment, and then you spend 20 minutes talking about how you'd fucking rewrite the movies to have Anakin being an old man.
Shut the fuck up, Cody.
You're the one violating the spirit of the show.
I said nothing about rewriting the movies. I said casting an older actor.
Anyways, round 2, MB, you have the first trivia question.
Ooh.
What is the name of the Death Stick seller Obi-Wan meets in the Coruscant bar? Not the name of the actor, the name of the character.
Death Stick guy?
Yes. He wants to sell Obi-Wan Kenobi Death Sticks.
No, that's what my guess was.
Oh, no, completely wrong. Anyone else?
Bono Sleazebagano.
I have to give you that because I'm really not a fan of you too. Elon Sleazebagano.
Ah,
Did you say Bono?
I said Bono.
Close enough. I'll give you that.
That was pretty close. I mean,
You got the Sleazebagano. I mean, that's the main part. James, you'll be happy to know that brings your total up to 1 point.
Yes! Your
Which
face,
puts
Mike.
you in second place.
hey,
I like that we're at the point where 1 point puts me in second place.
do a points rundown, Cody.
At the end of the first round, Mike, you had a grand total of 0 points.
Yeah.
James, you had a total of 0 points, but you just got a point here, so you're now second. I had a total of 0 points. And MB had a grand total of 3 points.
What? How?
You had 5,
That's
and
a
you
good
said 2 negative things, so you went back down.
Wait. So I mentioned so many good things that I advanced above Mike?
Yes.
And that head start
Awesome.
he had?
All right.
Although Mike clearly had the lead and ideas brought up. He just happened to say something positive and then immediately say something negative to cancel it.
Let's move on with your fucking trivia, dude.
Question 2, Mike! What was the working title of Star Wars Episode 2 before it was officially changed to Attack of the Clones?
Star Wars Episode 2, Jar Jar's Big Adventure.
Correct!
What was it actually called?
Jar Jar's Big Adventure.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Yes, because fuck the fanboys who aren't fans of Jar Jar, essentially.
Really?
Yeah, that's what it said on the script when it was sent out to people.
I could have sworn there was like an actual like more serious title though.
Well, there was when like they were filming or when they sent like the canisters out, there was like a code name, but
No, I thought like it was like something similar to Attack of the Clones, but it was different. Like a title that clearly would have been better.
there might have been. I mean, any title's better than Attack of the Clones.
Yeah.
The clones that don't attack. Ever.
They attack the bad guys.
They do, but that's not scary. You want them to attack the bad guys. Shouldn't it be Attack of Dracula? Dracula's in there. He's attacking. Attack Yoda.
Yeah, but he loses, so it's not so frightening. You know in the end it's all going to work out.
But Cody, by your own definition, everybody wins except for Dracula.
I have a feeling that everyone in Star Wars is Dracula.
Why do I feel like it's an
everybody loses?
actual theory? You're not even joking.
It's it's kind of a bastardization of this idea that everyone's Hannibal, but I mean it's the same general concept that we all, essentially use up other people for our own needs.
Okay, moving on to the trivia.
James,
Yes.
This is the only Star Wars film to be released the same year as a Star Trek film. What Star Trek film was released the same year as Attack of the Clones?
Star Trek Nemesis.
Correct. Star Trek Nemesis from 2002.
Their final voyage begins.
All right, so moving on into the bulk of the round. Is everyone ready? Does everyone have their positive thoughts?
Yeah.
Star Wars
Yeah.
Episode 2 laid out. I'm not going to count the grumbling right now. You can grumble all you want, but the second I hit this button, fucking points are flying left and right. You're losing flexogalactic bucks, all right?
I hate this fucking pod.
It's flexogalactic points, not bucks.
Credits.
Credits. Damn it. I hate this show. I hate all of you. I hate everything everybody stands for. I hate Star Wars.
Okay, push the button.
Okay, I want to talk about, I'm going to get a negative point up here. Is Attack of the Clones
God damn
good
it.
or salvageable in any way? No, it's not a good movie.
Attack of the
-1.
Clones may be the worst movie the worst blockbuster movie I've ever seen.
So I
God
would say,
damn it, guys.
this is what I did. I got to the exact halfway point. There was a scene transition. I paused. I came back several hours later and essentially watched Star Wars Episode 2 Attack of the Clones Part 2. That made it much more enjoyable when you just watch his two movies separated. If you just edit them separately, it's much easier to swallow.
I want to see that cut.
But the thing is, I like the things that was attempted with Attack of the Clones in some way. The noirish stuff, the kind of different
Midnight Detective Obi-Wan?
Yes, and I know there was a lot of more noir scenes that were kind of filmed, but kind of pushed it too far. But I love Obi-Wan going to a diner to get information. I loved going around the city and having the nightclub scene. And yeah, the chase. Yes, Cody, mark a negative point. Yes, the chase went on
Doing this.
for about 45 minutes. That was way too goddamn long, but it was fun to see that scene and all the kind of the noirish intrigue going on.
But my thing with the chase scene is that if you omit the dialogue, it is actually fairly tense and actually filled with some sort of I found it to be actually very enjoyable to watch once I disregarded anything that Anakin and Obi-Wan were saying to each other, because their dialogue is very quippy in that scene. It's very oh, he's the young rebel and I'm the old one who's getting too old for this.
Well, the funny thing about those quips is just if you just kept their first quip back and forth, in any given scene, it's fine. But then they keep talking in more quips.
Yeah.
Then it cuts away. It's they only need one quip per scene, George. Calm down.
Yeah.
Yeah, I found that most of the action scenes in this trilogy work just fine if you watch them on mute. There is to give Lucas credit, he can direct an action scene quite well.
Yeah.
And going back to Midnight Detective Obi-Wan, I love how this is the one movie in the entire canon that actually shows what the hell Jedis do when they're not in a Star War. It's actually kind of fascinating to see Obi-Wan just solve a mystery and interact with, the actual people who live in the Republic.
Yeah.
He's kind of like a Navy SEAL in a weird way, or like a intelligence officer, in that he goes to remote planets just to kind of see where a potential terror threat comes from. It was very weirdly timed in the way that it came out a year after 9/11, and it's like it was assessing a threat before it would get out of hand. And it kind of played really well into that. I thought, the whole plot line with Obi-Wan, even though it is dragged out very long, it is completely out of left field for the actual plot line and the pacing. It still is something to where it pushes Obi-Wan's character very far. Like you said, it pushes the idea of the Jedi very far. And it does a lot to establish a tone that is really unique, if anything else, to the Star Wars franchise, because you get to him hunting down Jango Fett, and it's actually kind of that tone, if it remained consistent throughout the entire movie, would have actually made an interesting movie out of it, I think. But another thing I wanted to bring up was, in spite of everything negative we could say about Anakin's character, and there's a lot of negative things you could say about Anakin's character in this movie specifically.
Sand.
His near date rape of Padme, essentially. The plot line with his mother is one of the strongest things of the entire prequels, and one of the few real emotional beats of the movie, and one of the things that actually really sells the idea that eventually he will become Darth Vader, because there's a lot of depth given to the idea that he just wants to save his mother finally, and the fact that he finds her, and that scene is actually really well handled. Hayden Christensen gets just devoured constantly, and I agree, he is god-awful in most of the prequel trilogy, but that scene is something out of another. It's like he is being directed and written by someone else entirely, because he manages to sell the pain, the anger, the hatred, everything at once coming to him as he watches his mother die. And when he comes out to kill the Tusken Raiders, you actually kind of want to see him do it. And I love that.
Yeah, it's one of the few moments in that character's backstory that actually seems like a scene from the backstory of Darth Vader.
Definitely. And I've said this about the prequel trilogy. It's you can say a lot about the execution of the storylines. If you took the story of the prequel trilogy and had a character, had an Alec Guinness sit down and explain what happened every movie beginning to end in a speech, they'd sound great. And Anakin slaughtering the Tusken Raiders would be the darkest, most dramatic part of that story until he actually turns into Darth Vader.
And it actually is still the darkest and most dramatic part of it in a way, because, that really stands out, as opposed to Revenge of the Sith, where it's there's a lot of dark moments, and this isn't a negative towards Revenge of the Sith at all. I actually really like the dark moments in Revenge of the Sith, but because there are so many of them, it doesn't do as well of a job as kind of shocking you as much as this scene does, because this scene is surrounded by such differing tones that this scene stands out on its own, and it manages to be a real big, heart-wrenching scene.
And it's something personal to Anakin that happens. His dark stuff that happened in Revenge of the Sith was Vader stuff. This is Anakin, that's supposed to be the good guy, who suddenly just goes off the deep end for a scene.
Yeah. And he really kind of, in that scene, that's the one thing he does that is really kind of noble, is that he wants to go, yes, it's his mother and he has a personal stake in it, but the idea that he wants to go and save her and free her, that is just something that is built on the innocence of the last movie, and it compels into this, and the fact that he fails is such a tragedy and such a big moment in that character's life and that character's idea that even though I don't really consider this Anakin to be the Anakin Skywalker that becomes Darth Vader, I can still see that part of it being a part of Darth Vader's, like, actual motivations.
It definitely makes a lot of sense. It's definitely a through line there. And I wish it was kept in the fact that his mother being kidnapped was actually a plot by Sidious, specifically. There was a line referencing it in Revenge of the Sith, but it was cut out.
I don't know about that. I mean, I think that is like...
I don't know. I like... Because, I mean, negative point, Cody.
I already put it down.
Okay. The problem I have with a lot of Anakin's fall between Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith is there's not a lot of active seducing to the dark side, I feel, coming from Darth Sidious. Like, there's a lot of talk, but I like there being some kind of large action moment that helps push Anakin over to that way. I mean, yeah, I do agree that kind of being Anakin on an island doing something horrible probably works a little bit better, but as far as trying to maybe fix another part, I kind of like that being connected.
Well, there's not a lot of agency in the movies to begin with. It's kind of a lot of just characters falling into traps and things happening to them.
Yeah.
So I can understand the desire to have at least one thing be planned.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And I can kind of see what you mean by that. And another thing to kind of add on to the scene in question is that people, once again, they just devour Christensen's performance. But the one thing that, besides the scene of his mother actually dying, that I felt he really handled well was the admission to Padme that he killed them and then breaks down. I think is actually one of his strongest moments. I feel like that is actually... And you could say that it's whiny or whatever, but I feel like it's a last of him as a child lashing out and really kind of his innocence dying in that moment in a weird way. Like, I feel like that scene is actually well handled, aside from the weird build-up it has, because the build-up is terrible, but the actual, like, conclusion of the scene, I feel.
I like the hints of the Vader Imperial March in there, too.
Yeah. That's actually, like, it's really kind of spooking in a weird way. Like, anytime Vader shows up incidentally, like, in either of the films besides Revenge of the Sith, I mean, it's kind of, like, horrifying in a weird way, the way that you know Vader's coming.
To kind of go off of the music, to me, the impressive part of Episode 2 is really the technical sides of it. I remember sitting in theaters, and when there's the Slave 1 space fight, there's, like, space depth charges that blow up in the asteroid field.
Yeah.
And that was the tightest shit. Like, just sitting there, being 12 years old, and just sitting in the theater, feeling the chairs shake as, like, the asteroids explode, and this, like, one's zooming around.
God, the sound
effect, the bass, like, holy cow, that really blew my little mind. I just love that so much. So the sound effects in all of Star Wars are just extremely notable. But I think they do a really good job here. Just, a space depth charge. How do you make that interesting? They found a way. They just have a great booming bass that you feel, so you get a sense of how powerful that is.
And since we're talking about sound design and the idea of the prequels, I feel it would be remiss to save this for last, and that John Williams' score, no matter what movie it is, no matter which of these movies out of the prequels it is utterly amazing.
Williams always delivers.
Williams is the connective tissue between the prequels and the other films, and even Force Awakens. Like, Williams always freaking delivers his A game to this franchise, and it's just so cool to hear. Like, even in this movie, it's so cool to hear these themes being expanded upon, and to hear the themes as the Jango Fett fight is going on, and to hear, like, kind of the kind of approximated version of a Jedi theme as he's, dangling Obi-Wan around, and they're kind of having this brutal fight in the rain, which is really well done, I thought. And
that scene doesn't get talked about enough. Yeah, the effects aren't very good, but god damn, is it actually kind of amazing to see a physical fight in a Star Wars movie.
Oh yeah, and not only that, but to see a bounty hunter actually be imposing and fight someone, unlike Boba Fett.
Yeah, we got to actually see a Fett do things.
Yeah, and
Fett does stuff in the original series. He's just embarrassing Return of the Jedi.
we're not having this argument again. Like Django actually fires the missile on his back.
Yeah, and he uses
It's not glued in this time.
He uses the jetpack, and the jetpack still gets taken out, but it doesn't get taken out in a comical way. Like it's all feels like a struggle on Obi-Wan's part, and that really sells the threat of this character.
And speaking of fights, I still love watching, even though I was shocked to see it's only like 2 minutes long. Yoda versus Dooku is still amazing.
Okay, I want to talk for a moment about this, because I'm looking over my notes now. Throughout this entire 7-hour movie, I was only able to come up with 2 notes, so I'm glad you guys had some stuff. One was, I really liked that the assassin in one of the first scenes was a girl.
Sam Whistle?
And fucking Count Dooku.
Okay,
This is a movie where Sir Christopher Lee walks out, stares down Master Yoda. They have a force battle, and then Sir Christopher Lee says to Master Yoda that this will not be decided by their mastery of the Force, but by their skill with lightsabers. And then he whips out his lightsaber that looks like a dildo, and he battles Master Yoda. That is a thing that happened.
And it is glorious.
On a more...
We don't care, Cody. Turn it off.
It would be great if we just stopped.
No, just wait it out. Just wait it out. Okay. Now,
now I'm going to make it with my own mouth. Just an hour of me making beeping noises over your...
Trust me, we're running out of things to talk about with Attack of the Clones. This will only take a second.
Yeah, definitely. But on a more serious note of Count Dooku, and I totally agree with everything James said.
Especially the dildo scene.
Yeah, Count Dooku as played by Christopher Lee is amazing and a sight to behold by itself. I didn't actually care for the Yoda fight, but here's the thing that I love about Dooku, is that in addition to being played brilliantly by Christopher Lee, he's actually kind of a rather novel character idea when you are first introduced to him, in that he's a former Jedi Master who becomes a Sith Lord and paints himself as someone who's not entirely allowed, he's not entirely allied himself with the dark side or the light side. He's kind of like a conspirator, like a third-party conspirator. But as course, that turns out to be false. But the idea there that he plants, that he's not on either side, that he's a Sith Lord acting outside of Sidious's influence and outside of the Jedi side, the idea that he's just someone who is neutral and has his own agenda, it would be really, really cool. And the idea that he plays that up to Obi-Wan in that scene where Obi-Wan is captured and he's trying to plead his case to him, that's actually one of the movie's strongest scenes and one of the movie's most well-acted, well-written. It's one of the best scenes in the entire movie for me, because
it's interesting too that was kind of invented in editing, because having Dooku in marketing and the opening crawl and all that is the main villain of the movie. He doesn't appear till nearly 2 hours into the film.
Oh yeah, he is dead end.
But that was because all of his other scenes were removed. He was more of the out and out villain earlier in the film, and they kind of, I think, shot 2 different versions of his scene with Obi-Wan, and they kind of just Lucas, I guess, decided to have him still, you don't know whether or not he's gone to the dark side until really that scene with Yoda where he starts shooting Force lightning.
Round 3!
And let us never speak of Attack of the Clones again.
So that was rough. For a while there, everyone was in the red. Everyone brought it back around. Mike managed to gain 1 point that round, bring his total to 1 point.
Yeah!
James, you were looking pretty bad there for a while, but then you said 3 positive things right at the end to bring your total to 0 points. I said 1 positive thing, so I'm up to a point, and MB got a point, so he is the leader with 4. Mike and I are tied in second with 1, and James rounding up last place with 0. Still anyone's game.
Listen, my object this is to net 0. I don't want
for a long time you were maintaining that, but you kind of faltered at the end.
So we still got 1 more to go.
That's true.
Got one more to go. I don't want to owe anybody anything. I don't want to owe anybody any favors. I don't want anything. I want a part of this.
Right. So, round 3. Mike, you're up. How many transitional screen wipes appear in the film, plus or minus 5?
273.
Incorrect. Anyone else?
None.
500.
No, 40. 40
So I was closest.
screen wipes. Yeah, no one gets any points.
Yeah, well, but
I was closest.
he
I
was-
said none.
This
He
isn't
was-
price.
I said
without
nothing,
going over.
therefore I think I should take it.
why can't we be using Price is Right?
I said plus or minus 5. Like, that's not closest. Anyways,
Well, just
James! Can you describe just what the fuck Kit Fisto looks like? Or possibly his species?
He's green and he's a squid man.
Very close to my notes. I wrote green squid head, black doll eyes. Natolian. So that's a point for James.
what the hell?
I am so glad
I call
Fisto
shenanigans. He
is.
looked like a Rastafarian.
That seems a little racist there. MB.
No, I freaking love Kit Fisto. Don't you dare turn this into a negative.
Some of his best friends are Kit Fisto.
Are Natolians. MB. What celebrated knighted British playwright provided a script polish for Revenge of the Sith?
Oh God. I feel like I should know this. I don't know this. Damn it.
Okay. James, Mike.
It's like on the tip of my tongue, but I got nothing.
James, it's down to you.
No, I've got nothing.
The correct answer
You were the
is
chosen one.
Sir Tom Stoppard.
I didn't know.
Tom motherfucking Stoppard actually put his pen to the script somehow.
Well, apparently not any of the scenes between Anakin and that Padme, I'll tell you that.
He didn't. Oh god, just imagine what they were before. Okay, so
Maybe that's why Ian McDermott actually has amazing dialogue in this movie.
Unlimited
Anakin, help me!
Outside of that scene, he has...
No, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. That is awesome.
Okay, so we're about to start the clock on Star Wars Episode 3, and I'm gonna kick things off here because I have a very special connection to this movie. I fucking hate this movie.
Negative.
George Lucas is a robot that cannot be taught how to love, and that doesn't stop him from writing scripts about it.
More negative
The
points.
fall of Anakin is crammed into about 20 minutes of the movie, and I think they forgot he was supposed to be Darth Vader by the end of it, and they just panicked.
4 negative points so far.
On Naboo, they don't really teach the children the concept of subtlety. At least Darth Sidious didn't fucking bother to learn it.
5 negative points.
Hey, he had been subtle through 2 movies. He just got tired. He's old.
Characters should just never lose the will to live in any movie. Like, it's only encouraging me to do the same. Like, well, if they can get out of that easy, I should just stop breathing too.
Okay. I think we can all agree. The will to live was the dumbest thing, possibly of the entire prequel trilogy of movies. Honestly,
We can all agree with a lot of things Cody is saying right now. Like, the fall of Anakin is essentially just like, fuck, we forgot to do that. Quick, make him evil.
Yeah, I agree. In some on other instances, though, I kind of do like the way that Palpatine plays it up, because I do like the idea that he preys on Anakin's fears, that his very real fears built up of the idea of Padme dying. I actually do like that storyline in theory. The way it plays out is atrocious.
Yeah, once again, going into, if you just have someone say that, it's awesome. It's just the execution of it isn't done that well.
Yeah.
That's actually a good place to start with the positives, because I still maintain that in spite of the trilogy's many flaws, throughout all 3 movies, Ian McDermott is amazing.
Oh yeah,
God,
and
yeah.
Palpatine is a great villain.
Oh, Palpatine is one of the great, not only does he sell the idea that he's eventually going to become Emperor of the Galaxy, but he's also just such a great puppet master that every little scene with him adds a little more, and it keeps building up to the point where by the time he's full on Darth Sidious and Emperor Palpatine and all of that, it feels like it's earned. It feels like that has been a natural progression just as much as Obi-Wan has been a natural progression.
Yeah, I love him being played as Space Satan in every scene, even when he's Palpatine or when he's Sidious or whatever.
Wait, he's Space Satan from A New Hope?
Yeah, fun fact, that was a little cameo that he had.
But, Ian McDermott is one of the greats. I mean, just an absolute underrated performer, just all around in general. But as Sidious, he is one of the most fun things to watch of the entire franchise. Let's face it.
And in that third movie, it is a delight to watch him slowly over the course of 2.5 hours go from the very reserved, low-key Palpatine to kind of barking with his voice a little more and getting a little more high-pitched to the point where he just becomes final transformation Palpatine. Like, that's what I love. McDiarmid didn't have to do that, but he decided to put little Emperor-isms throughout that performance.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the things I love about, and this is more of Palpatine, it's not about McDiarmid's performance, it's more about how it's written. I love the fact that the first time you actually see him in the movie, he's turning around in a chair in front of a space battle and draped in black. Like
His throne.
Like, for a movie that is criticized for not having any subtlety whatsoever, and I do agree on some respects, that is actually really brilliant. Especially considering that's also the scene where he essentially just goads Anakin on into killing Dooku in cold blood.
Yeah, well, I actually want to talk about that real quick. I really, really like the first 15 minutes of this movie.
Oh, it's great.
Like that, the first 15 minutes of this movie are just Star Wars. Like Vader, like Obi-Wan and Anakin have Star Wars banter. There's a great Star Wars space fight. Then they confront Dooku, and Dooku talks like a Star Wars villain. And they have this amazing fight scene. There's that little bit of darkness at the end with Palpatine convincing Anakin to kill Dooku in cold blood. And it's like, why can't all of these movies be like this?
I would love to see the version of that scene, because like the first cut of that scene was like an hour long.
Seriously?
Yeah, that the very first cut of Revenge of the Sith was like 4 hours long.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
We would actually get to see Christopher Lee be a villain in these movies.
Yeah, and even more Grievous, hopefully.
But, yeah, I mean, just going back to the first 15 minutes of this movie, it's like, it's so cool just to see Anakin and Obi-Wan's characters just having matured to some degree to where they feel like actually Master and Padawan for a very brief moment. Like, I actually love their rapport in this movie as opposed to Attack of the Clones.
Yeah, their essential breakup is actually something that has emotional weight to it, and it didn't have previously, because dialogue with them is actually cleaned up.
Yeah, the only thing that ruins it, to me, is Lucas, for some reason, decided to direct Christensen as just having really broken not broken dialogue, but really broken delivery, because everything he says in his voice has a lilt to it whenever he's angry. And every time he plays that part of himself, it's like, you turned her against me? Like,
Christian does not do angry very well.
No, and that's really bad for a character who's supposed to build towards being an angry person.
Yeah. Like, a person consumed by hate just kind of comes off as a teenager again. Like, it doesn't...
And going back to what I said about Phantom Menace, imagine McGregor as Anakin Skywalker saying that to Liam Neeson as Obi-Wan. Like, I'm sorry, I just will never let that go. That is just such a missed opportunity.
And as Mike briefly mentioned, if I could, like, go into, like, the film canisters and pull out anything from these movies, it would be every single second of Grievous that exists.
Grievous,
the greatest over-the-top dopey villain of all time.
God.
The Cobra Commander of Star Wars.
I love how Grievous, in the middle of all this, the most serious of the prequel trilogy, is a comic book villain to the extreme. He is...
Time to abandon.
He's so delightful and enjoyable, and I love how he's introduced early, because it kind of fixed the problem. The previous movies was like, okay, here's a villain right away.
And not only that, but he has such a great design to him, too. Like, I love the, like,
tracked look.
Yeah, the armored look, and he has, like, this cloak, and you don't know which part of the robot element begins and the part of the organic element ends. And
he has that great voice.
He has a great voice, though the coughing, I mean, of course.
Yeah, people shit on the coughing. I mean, I get why. Me, personally, I really like the coughing. Like, I don't know, it just gives him a little extra something that I like how he's broken in some way. It feels, I don't know, it feels Star Wars to me that, yeah, he was brought back to life with robotics, but he still coughs.
But another aspect of Grievous' character that I love is that he is a video game boss by the end of it. Like, he pulls out 4 lightsabers and starts twirling them with roboto arms.
And this is after a scene where he meets up with Obi-Wan and flees in his Grievous-mobile, which is just the big wheel from Spider-Man.
Time to abandon ship again!
This is one thing that Mike and I have had as a running joke for the longest time, but completely off Star Wars. Batman the Brave and the Bold has this version of the Clock King who has a Grievous-mobile.
And that scene of Grievous running away and jumping into his Grievous-mobile and taking off is recreated exactly in Batman Brave and the Bold. It's incredible.
In an Aquaman episode. Like, it's so amazing. Like, to see that scene played out and as an homage is like, it's so surreal because Grievous is such a comic book villain.
Yeah, and I love that whole fight with him and Obi-Wan.
Oh, yeah. And not only that, but I love the resolution that Obi-Wan comes to is that, oh, I guess I have to shoot him. And then he shoots him and he's like, that was so uncivilized. Like, it's so in keeping with Obi-Wan's character. I love it.
Also, just a quick note. This is a note I had for the entire trilogy, which I didn't notice until rewatching them the other day. Every villain has a signature vehicle. In Phantom Menace, you have the Maul Cycle. In Attack of the Clones, the Dooku Speeder. All finally building up to the Grievous-mobile.
Well, not only that, but Dooku has the Dooku Shuttle.
That's true. He has.
Well, Maul had the, what was it, the Interceptor?
Yeah, he had that.
He had the Interceptor.
It's the Maul Cycle.
No,
his actual spaceship.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You just kind of see it parked, but I mean, he does, like, there was a Lego toy of it and everything.
You see it like approaching Naboo, but that's about it.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things actually about Star Wars as a whole is George Lucas's ability to really make you remember a key bit of either culture or an alien species or planet. Like, he makes them all stand out. Like, we all have no problem reciting the names of all the planets that were visited in a George Lucas Star Wars movie. Oh, it's Mustafar. Even if I hate the movie, I can still name Mustafar or Coruscant or Naboo, any of them, because he makes them very distinct. He kind of gives them a special introduction. He gives them a little bit of time to focus, but he doesn't throw it in your face necessarily. You end up remembering all these things, and they're very distinct.
Yeah, and that's something very special just to kind of Star Wars. That's something you can get away with in every movie.
Well, Mustafar specifically, I want to talk about this just a little bit because one thing I've always noticed about the Star Wars canon is that the mostly distinct planets are of one particular element. And I mean element in the elemental way, in that Hoth is a complete ice planet. It's a complete snow-filled planet. Tatooine is a complete sand planet. Mustafar is a complete lava planet. And then you have Kashyyyk, which is a complete forest. You have Dagobah, which is complete swamp. Like, Mustafar fits alongside all those classic Star Wars planet locations.
It's the hell of Star Wars.
Pretty much. I mean, it's such a fitting place for Darth Vader to be born because it's just so, it ties into the epicness that is built up over the course of the Obi-Wan and Anakin lightsaber battle because the entire focus of it is the surroundings as well as the fight.
I love the kind of thought, because the thought Lucas puts into the worlds, something he doesn't get enough credit for is, like, he can't just, even places like Hoth, they can't just exist for the hell of it. Like, Mustafar has to have a reason to be inhabitable. Like, okay, it's a lava planet, but why are people on it? Okay, they mine the lava for energy and ship it out across the universe. It's where energy sources come from. So it's like, that's why there's places there. And then you have a world on the planet to build the fight around, or they can get on carts or go into the generator room and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
I like the idea of them shipping lava to other universes. So, like, in your box of Cracker Jacks, you get a surprise of lava. Like, yay! And then you burn a hole through your body.
You just get boxes of lava in the mail every month. Oh!
They don't cool down. It's just the Lava of the Month Club.
Mom, the lava's here!
Run.
No, don't jump into it.
Good. Scold yourself.
That's Sidious's plan all along.
I mean, if he was envisioning that, I mean, that kind of was his plan. But, I mean, going to something else that I talked about just very briefly, while I don't feel it's as strong as the Darth Maul fight, I do feel like the final fight between Anakin and Obi-Wan, and specifically, not only that, but intercut with the fight between Yoda and Sidious, makes for probably the greatest third act of, I don't know, Empire is definitely has the greatest third act, but probably the second greatest third act of all the Star Wars films.
Yeah, there is something intensely satisfying about seeing the Emperor hold a lightsaber and use his godlike force powers to battle Yoda.
It's so amazing. Even throwing, people joke about him throwing the Senate at Yoda. It's still such an amazing scene, just watching the Emperor throw things at Yoda using the Force.
And not only that, but he does it while cackling, while being just crazy. Like, Ian McDiarmid plays crazy like no one else does. Like,
he's having so much fun. And then the Obi-Wan Anakin fight, I think one of the reasons it works so well, besides it was choreographed, yes, Cody, we know. Besides the fact it was choreographed really well, is like, even as amazing as the Maul fight was, and I mean, it was amazing. It's unparalleled. It's the best fight scene in the prequels, but there's no, it doesn't feel like there's true stakes in it. It's just a fight between good and evil. Here, there's a little bit more going on because it's Obi-Wan and Anakin fighting, and there's been such build-up throughout the movie to this fight. So even though it goes on for a very long time, it's very easy to stay with it. You don't get lost in all of the, acrobatics during the battle.
well, a lot of that is also the score, because every time the score for that fight kicks in, it is very distinct, even from the score playing in the actual Yoda and Sidious fight, because there's a theme that runs throughout the entire Obi-Wan and Anakin fight that I feel is comparable, honestly, with Duel of the Fates.
It's very good.
And that it's so well done, and it just paints this level of tragedy and level of intensity all at once. And at the same time, I love the little moments, the choreography for me, is sort of hit and miss in terms of, being believable as a lightsaber fight and being believable as a sword fight. But the thing that I love is the intercut little moments where Anakin goes for, Obi-Wan's throat, or pushes him down and tries to use the lightsaber to, cut down. It was a shot in one of the first trailers, the shot of him using the lightsaber to kind of force down in Obi-Wan's face and almost get him there. Little moments like that are what make the fight really cool, because they're trying really hard to outdo each other. Obi-Wan is trying to outdo him so that he can get him under control. Anakin is just trying to murder him. And the little moments like that have no dialogue to them whatsoever are just well done, well shot, well acted, well whatever. I mean, it's just all so concisively done. And then you get to the dialogue where it's this is the end for you, my master. And it just slowly kind of falls apart for a brief moment.
Yeah, from my point of view, the Jedi are evil. I mean, of course,
you all lost. Ewan McGregor's, God bless him. I mean, he
tries really hard to get.
He tries really hard, and he actually does really good with all of that. He's good, the Chosen One thing and all that.
Well, once again, I strongly recommend seeking out the anti-cheese cut of Revenge of the Sith, where that entire sequence goes along with no dialogue.
Really?
Oh yeah. That's the smallest cut of the trilogy. They only cut about 10 minutes out of it, mostly just for time constraints. It's just some of the bad dialogue, a lot of the Anakin Padme stuff, and Padme dying of a broken heart.
Yeah, I've actually
Oh
yeah, I actually watched the third act of that anti-cheese edit, and it was very good. The fight was great.
Oh yeah, the much with the Phantom Menace anti-cheese cut, that cut of Revenge of the Sith is actually a pretty solid movie.
Yeah, there's lots and lots of fan edits that are able to make the films pretty good. I mean, there's the infamous, right after Phantom Menace came out, there was the Phantom edit that just sort of made very subtle cuts to the film, but apparently improved it vastly.
I should say the Attack of the Clones cut, still unwatchable. You can't fix that movie.
Well, I mean, I don't know what Attack of the Clones is about still.
Clones and they're attacking something. But for me, and this is kind of, I don't know what you would call it. It's not really embarrassing to admit. It's just kind of weird. But I get teared up every time I watch the end of Revenge of the Sith. No matter how many times I've seen it, no matter what mood I'm in, no matter how I feel about the actual movie itself. When the score for the Twin Moons of Tatooine actually kicks in, and you see Obi-Wan watching and just sort of thinking to himself, there's something inside me that like really gets emotional, and I just love that brings that out of me. But going back even further a little bit, the whole sequence where Vader, from the moment his helmet is put on and he's risen and, you know, he's told that Padme dies, and aside from, you know, no and all that, I love just the little moments with him walking on the bridge of the ship in front of the Death Star, and you hear the like really big score for it, the really like tragic score for it, because it's right after the scene of Padme's funeral, which by itself was actually a really good scene, I thought. And you see Vader just kind of embrace his dark side finally as he folds his arms and just looks ahead and stares ahead, and you can get a lot out of that. Just basic imagery, but also just he's finally just succumbed to everything, and he has lost everything. He's just a broken shell of a man, and he's finally made the full transformation. And in that moment, you can kind of believe it.
It's a very good ending.
You got any shit to say about that, Cody?
A lot of shit to say about that, but I'm going to hold my tongue.
You don't want to lose any more points.
I have already lost the game.
Thank God.
Pretty much.
This was a horrible idea.
No, I knew I was going to take my lumps, but I had to make a stand.
But as I've said before, like going off of that, and going off again, if Alec Guinness explained the plot of the prequels, it'd be amazing. I would love to see, the people behind the Clone Wars and Rebels series recreate the prequels.
Yeah.
Just take that structure, take that story, and just redo it.
New dialogue.
Write new dialogue. Maybe do each film as like 6 episodes, something like 6 half-hour episodes. That would be amazing, because and to prove like this can work. It's the execution that's bad, because if you put that together and then ride that along into like the story of the original trilogy, you have one long saga that really does play off of itself well and does tell one long story of an idea. And Anakin's story does play throughout all of that. So
and I would particularly love to see Clone Wars Anakin Skywalker actually be turned into Darth Vader, because I want to see that siege, because in Rebels he's just, he's James Earl Jones as Darth Vader. He's just flat out Darth Vader. I want to see the version in Clone Wars that is noble and heroic. The version of Anakin we were essentially promised in the original trilogy.
Yeah.
Become Darth Vader and see the fall and see how tragic it is that this good man becomes so evil.
Yeah, Clone Wars got across like that version. There was a version in those films of Anakin Skywalker that is perfect, but they distilled that and kind of rewrote it and rebuilt it into a version of Anakin you can see being, Luke Skywalker's father, being this great, powerful Jedi, and at the same time falling, being seduced by the dark side and becoming Darth Vader. He has all of that in him at once. And then the movies, that version is, pulled apart into kind of just a whiny teenager.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, I think what is so devastating about the prequels, and what is the reason for the transfixation on it by everyone, is that they know inwardly that it's a missed opportunity, because there is so much there that you could do stuff with. And that denotes a level of quality, because the stories, the structures, everything like that, everything on a basic conceptual level is fairly solid. And like, it's not just like, oh, it's all bad. It's like, no, it's like you said, execution is just really off. And Just this little things just chip away at it.
At best, the movies are fine. At worst, they're Attack of the Clones. But fine isn't good enough because there was so much there. There was so much there in the movies themselves to look at and go, this should be 1,000 times better. This should be amazing.
Yeah.
But it just got lost. It was never executed correctly.
Yeah. And really, that's nothing that anyone ever brings up, which I think is surprising considering that that's the biggest flaw of the entire prequel trilogy, is that there's so much wasted opportunity because it's not, and that's not saying it's because it's built off of Star Wars and the original trilogy and all that. It's because of what's there and what could have been done with what was there.
Yeah, and what gets lost in all of the Jar Jar jokes is there's such interesting mythology brought up in that, like how the prequels play with the trope of the chosen one, and how they, I mean, that's how it gets it across that, yeah, the chosen one thing is horrible. That should never happen. That's a terrible
It's actually
idea.
one of the few inversions of that time-honored trope that we really have seen in modern fiction.
Yeah,
It's especially noticeable today whenever that is the most common trope being shoved down our throats. The destiny, 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 everything is destiny setup.
And Star Wars, as a saga, everyone sees this big destiny thing when the whole point of it is the destiny thing is bullshit. Like, I mean, there's things with Anakin's origin that can point to that in many ways, but Anakin's the kid who was told he was Jesus Christ constantly, and that's what happened.
Yeah, he was told that, and the end result was Darth Vader.
Horrible things happened because the Jedi Order did that, and took a kid and tried to make him the chosen one to save the universe. And
I get that it's told to be a flaw of the movie, but really, I think it also is in keeping of what's built up in that Anakin himself believes it by Attack of the Clones, because he says, in a lot of ways, I'm really better than him. I'm really more skilled than him in regards to Obi-Wan. Because he's been told that constantly.
Yeah, what else is he supposed to think? He's being told that he's the greatest Jedi who's ever lived, so of course he's going to think that. Like, that's what helped.
He's still insufferable, don't get me wrong. He is insufferable as hell, but he's insufferable because he was made to be that way. And because Christensen kind of is spotty.
And snotty.
Yeah.
So snotty. It's funny that all the prequel hate, there's a lot of basic Star Wars things that are introduced in the movies that everyone kind of accepts and likes and will defend, but won't really fully cop to the fact that they come from the prequels and their prequel concepts.
Like the idea of the Padawans and the Siths in general, who were dark Jedi for like 30 years.
Yeah, everything was, referred to as the dark side in the original trilogy. It wasn't revealed that they were Sith Lords at any point. It was just, there were Jedi, and then some Jedi turned to the dark side, and then they were evil.
And the idea of Darth being a title pretty much comes from the prequels.
Yeah, well, that came from the expanded universe, but you have to have read the expanded universe to know about Darth.
And God knows there is not enough time in the world.
No, unless you really want to read about the adventures of Aayla Secura, which I do personally.
Aayla Secura, one last positive note about Revenge of the Sith. That is one of the hottest Jedis that has ever existed. I'm all for.
Oh, then talk negative, Cody.
Talk negative about Aayla Secura and her head
Your
tail.
Twi'lek lovers.
You have an avatar that's a Twi'lek.
He is an avatar of Bib Fortuna during this entire conversation. It is really distracting.
I don't see your point.
Why do the male Twi'leks have balls on their forehead?
Why do they have big jowls?
I think that's just Bib Fortuna.
Go wugga wugga.
Wunga wunga.
Anyway, I think we're done.
No. There's points. Rounding up our game today because I have no more trivia, and if I have to talk about episode 3 anymore, I'll gouge my eyes out. 4th place, me, with -4 points.
Thank God.
3rd place, Mike, with 3 points.
I beat you. That's all that's important.
True, but you said you wanted 0.
failed by winning, Mike.
God damn it!
You think you
And
can
you
play
didn't
this
even-
game, boy?
You didn't even win the game. You didn't have the honor of taking last, and you didn't have the honor of taking first.
No, Cody, you can't somehow. You know what? Fuck it. I give up.
Drum roll. That'll be added in post.
There, happy.
Thank you. Yes, a little bit. No, never. Anyways, it's a 1-point game. In second place, James, you are the loser. You had 5 points. MB took first with 6.
Yes!
Although you put a good showing in there. You had 5 points in that last round.
Yeah!
But MB just had too big of a head start from that first round.
Eat it, all of you!
MB has the rare ability to get wistful about Darth Vader.
It's true.
That's his superpower.
That's not rare.
And that right there is pod racing.
Yippee!
Because Box Office Pulp is the most unprofessional show in the world.
We all came in with research and notes and stuff. You know, this
We
wasn't...
watched movies.
I didn't have any notes. I went off the top of my head.
We did some research. I made a game.
Yes, Cody, you made a game. We were
That's
all
professional.
very happy about the game.
See, with that kind of attitude, you're just encouraging people not to make games in the future. I'm going to put less effort into this thing.
Cody, I was saying positive things about your game.
You had a tone.
I think he deserves a flexo point.
Well, they're all my points. I'm keeping them. MB will get 0 points.
Yeah, what does MB get with his Flexo Galactic credits?
Well, it's actually kind of a genie thing. When he won, I was going to dump them in his house until the weight of all the Flexo credits actually destroyed him.
How much do these fucking things weigh?
They are made of solid lead.
Why?
Well, because people don't want solid lead, so I took it.
How much is lead worth?
Not much. Actually, to the internet.
Yeah, can we figure this out? I want to know how much a...
What is the
So,
going
black-
rate for lead? Lead prices.
This is happening right now.
At infomine.com. Let's see. Is this the most recent? Ooh, there was a hey, well, okay, this goes all the way up to 2014. Ooh. So apparently dollar per pound, about a year ago, lead's on a downward slope. Lead price right now, they actually have it written out. As of December 18th, the lead prices were at about 76 cents a pound.
So, how much does a Flexo Galactic credit weigh?
Well, see, that's also tied into the Canadian monetary system. There's an exchange rate. It's not really just a set, it's £5 for a Flexo buck. That'd be ridiculous.
Yeah, that would be ridiculous. I can't believe I even brought it up. It's so ridiculous.
It's actually a shame. Back in the day, it'd be much harder to kill MB with Flexo credits. This is back roughly 2008. Lead was going for like $1.60 a pound. So it would have cost me a lot to destroy him with Flexo credits.
Wait. 2008 does not qualify as back in the day.
Well, dude, it's, almost 2016 now. That's getting old. The long run is, 5 years? And to look back even further, oh man, it would have been really easy to just destroy MB with lead. Back in 1989, it was going for just over 20 cents a pound. That would have been the time to murder someone with lead.
I'm all for receiving that lead. I mean, what else am I going to have?
Postage is not included. You have to pay for the lead to destroy yourself.
How much is it?
We will determine that later. I have to figure out how much it requires to smother a man with lead. Also, if you just want to stand outside, it'll be easier because I can drop it, and, lead when it reaches terminal velocity, I'm pretty sure is enough to crack the skull.
Will it come out of an airplane or a helicopter, or, what are you thinking?
I was going to stand in your house and drop it on you personally, but...
Cody,
that's
you know what's going to happen?
The cheapest option.
You know what's going to happen. You're going to get on that roof holding all those Flexo Galactic credits, and the roof is going to collapse and it's going to kill you.
But then I'll have gone out knowing I destroyed MB's house. So I die in a blaze of glory.
Yeah, but then there's a pile of Flexo Galactic credits on the floor that he can then use to repair the house.
But won't I be dead?
No, because...
Probably will kill your family.
It depends on where you land.
Well, I'm going to do my best to kill his family on the way down.
I don't think you have any option in this. You're going to fall whenever that roof decides to collapse. You don't get
Well,
to
I'm saying
plan
I'm
your
going to
death.
fall. I'm going to fall. I mean, that happens. Sure, that's a gimme.
Yeah,
I'll fall
I
to my
think you're
death.
going to be a little distracted by the falling and being crushed by lead.
No. Have you ever been in a car crash? Your perception of time kind of slows down, and you can make some maneuvers.
Cody, you're falling through a roof and wood.
Great, the wood will help slow me down a little bit. I mean, as I go through the attic, I can kind of push off of that and aim myself towards somebody important to MB, or at least an heirloom.
If you'd like this podcast, God knows why, remember to subscribe to it on iTunes and rate it on iTunes. God knows why. We're also on Stitcher. If you want to listen to any other podcasts by the Pulp Podcast Network, go to pulppodcastnetwork.wordpress.com.
Cross promotion!
End the show, Cody.
That's a wrap. Get the hell out of here.
I hate you.
I hate sand. Gets all up in my pouches.
Wizard.
Time to abandon ship.
And like that, he's gone.
Lord Mike, can you hear me?
Yes, Cody? Where are James and MB? Are they still playing the game? Have they lost?
It seems in your nitpicking you were in third place.
I couldn't have. I was being positive. I felt it.
Are we doing the yelling thing? Because I have one. It's unlimited power, and then I talk about power for a while, and the kids love it.
So don't think you can do old Palp, friend. You don't have the tongue for it.
I like how that ended with a palp off.
This is Box Office Pulp Guy, and this has been a Pulp Podcast production. Now please, 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 put a gun in my mouth and pull the trigger and say goodnight.
And now, on with the show.